Hi, welcome to Red Hart Quilts. My name is Marie. Today we're going to be showing you how to make the quilt behind me. The name of the quilt pattern is Square Diamonds. I call this particular quilt Black Beauty because of the design that the fabric makes when the blocks come together. The fabric that we chose is chickens, birds, and tropical leaves. When we got this fabric, I kind of got it by accident. And when it came to me, I saw the beauty of the interest in the fabric, and I put a mirror on it. If you've ever seen where you can take the mirror and look at what happens with the mirror, that's what I did. So obviously I had to cut this one up in a kaleidoscope type. To do that, we have to know what a repeat is in our pattern. This particular repeat is marked on the edge of the fabric. You can see the words on the fabric is the best way to see a repeat. If you're at the store and you want to know how many yards do I need, because we need 8 repeats for this fabric, for this pattern, you're going to have to know where the repeat is. So you can look at the selvage, and if the manufacturer has written on the selvage the writing, you can go from the beginning of one to the beginning of the next one. Just find a spot. If there's no writing, you can find something like the bird, the flower, go to the next identical one, and that will be your whole repeat. This particular one is 25 3/4 inches. We're going to have to cut 8 pieces off your fabric, 25 3/4 inches. But we're going to do that not by measuring, we're going to do it by marking our repeat. So I'm going to go to the place on one side, I'm going to find it again, which is up here, and I'm going to fold the fabric on that mark. The reason I'm going to fold it is because that's the straightest line that we know we have. Anytime you fold a piece of fabric, I can fold it just like this and I have a straight line. So that's our reference mark. We're going to fold our fabric, we're going to press it, and you can just press it with your fingers. You don't have to take it to an ironing board. And this is where we're going to cut. That's going to be the one edge of our master repeat. Once we get that cut, we're going to pretend that this is what we just cut. We're going to take it and we're going to find that on the next section of the fabric. You can always look at the selvage. That's going to give you the reference that you're going to go to. When you find that point, you're going to lay your next fabric out. And when you come to the same exact place, that's how we're going to know where it's at. When you have it laid out correctly, you should not be able to tell where one fabric ends and one fabric begins. We're going to take our flathead pins. We use these because we can put a ruler on top of them and we can cut with the pin still there. Take your flathead pins, pin multiple times down this fabric. Remember to line it up so that you cannot tell where it begins and ends. Once you get it all pinned all the way across, we're going to cut this with scissors. You can use your rotary cutter and your ruler if you choose to. I just like cutting this with scissors better. Once we have 8 of those cut, we are going to have a pile of 8. You can see that I have my pile here. It's my 8 repeats. I have them pinned all along the top and the sides and the bottom. I do that because I'm going to be cutting strips across my fabric. You always want to press your fabric before you ever start doing anything. We always know that. That's an old rule. Anytime you start a quilt, you want to do that. So we've already pressed all this fabric. When we get it pinned, we're going to cut the edge off with our ruler and our rotary cutter. So that's why we needed those pins. We're just going to cut our edge off, lay this all up on your rotary mat, cut that right off. And then we're going to go to 5 3/4 inches. Our repeat divided by 4 is 5 3/4 inches. Whatever your repeat is, if your repeat is 28 inches wide, you divide it by 4, you're going to have 7-inch cuts. So you're going to cut 7 inches if that was the case. Our case, we're going to cut 5 3/4. I would cut the other direction. I'm trying to do this backwards. So I'll cut 5 3/4 off here. And you're going to do this 7 times. You're going to get 7 strips of all these pinned together down your fabric. Once you get those all cut, you're going to lay it down here on your line, cut the edge off so that we have a straight edge. And then I'm going to go 5 3/4 inches. And I'm going to do that all the way across my fabric. I know that 5 3/4 and 5 3/4 is 11 1/2. That's my next cut. Once I get these cut, they're going to be squares. Take my square and I'm going to cut it diagonally. You'll notice I leave all my pins in. We want to leave pins in the whole time you're working with this fabric. Keep your 8 repeats together. Cut it once diagonally. Notice I hold the pressure of my hand on this ruler near where my rotary blade's going to be. You always want to put your blade cut next to where the pressure of your hand is so your ruler does not shift. When I have these, you're going to have 56 of these when you're done cutting. Each one of these is going to make a block. When you spin 8 of them together, this is what's going to happen. That's where your pattern comes from. I call this square diamonds. This is like the facet of a diamond. When you look at the diamond on your hand, you have that big rock on your finger. You see all the motion and the activity going on. The different lights affect that. Every block, the way you cut it and the way you put it together makes it look different. It's the facets of your diamond. See how this is coming together? Each block is a surprise. Every time you get this with the tropical leaves, I'm missing one here on this one. The tropical leaves and the birds give a lot of interest in this. When we get them cut, like I said, when you cut your triangles, you always want to have a pin in your 8 pieces. Never take this out until you're sewing it. When we start sewing it, we're going to have a pile of fabric. When we go to the sewing machine, we're going to have your fabric and you're going to have your 8 pieces together just like this. See, I have 8 little points up there. I'm going to lay it out with the long side next to my sewing machine. I'm going to pick up one piece, another piece. I'm going to flip the top piece over and put it just like this. Take a couple pins. Pin my fabric. I put my pins away from the edge and I put them in this direction because I don't want to take my pins out at my sewing machine while I'm sewing. I leave those pins in there. I'm controlling the fabric with my pins. I'm going to sew this. I'm going to sew my other ones, all 8 of those, and I can sew them just like this, 4 at a time. And then I snip them apart. When I have them sewn, you can see the threads here. I sew with a small stitch. My sewing machine defaults to a 2.5. I sew with a 2. The reason I sew with a 2 is because I don't want my stitches coming apart. I don't want to have to back stitch every time. I'm going to subcut these at the end, so you want to make sure you have a nice strong stitch. When I sew this and I open it up, I'm going to press my seam open, and I'm just going to finger press this so you can see what happens. When we sew this together, we're going to have 8 pieces of fabric come together, and we're going to have a lot of seams coming towards the center. Anytime we have that many seams, we want to press our seams open. You'll notice I have some little dog ears up there. Want to snip those off, and this is the only step that you have to do your dog ears. I work with my one block at a time, one set of triangles. I take these, I sew all the steps of these, I keep them together the whole time. If you get these mixed up and you don't keep them together, you're going to have a lot of problem trying to figure this out. Otherwise, it stays simple. So I do 4 of these, and then I take those and I pin those together. So I'm going to have 4 sets that look like this. Take them together. Notice I've cut the ears off of these. I line up the center seam. Some fabrics are a little harder than other. You can actually put your pin. I like these nice little silk pins. They have a glass head and they're a thinner type pin for this. So I've used the flathead pins. Now I'm using these when I sew things together. I can put the pin in that seam and pin it so that it doesn't move. And then I'm going to pin down the edge. And again, I pin away from the edge so that I can not have to take my pins out. You're going to sew down this side, just like this. Again, we're going to press our seam open, and we have 2 units now that look like this. This is what they're going to look like. You can see when we join them together, that gives us our interest in our block. When we take these 2 together, I'm going to start pinning right on this center seam. I'm going to pin through one side where it comes out that center seam, and I'm going to pin right through the back. It should actually come out of the seam. Then I'm going to pin just like I did on all the other steps, a little bit away from the center. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to put a couple pins this way. And you're saying, why on earth would I flip it over? Because when I start sewing this, I'm one of those people that I never want to have to rip out stuff if I can prevent it. And I know that all of the quilters are good rippers. But for this particular one, since I have 8 points coming together, I'm going to actually start sewing at that center point. And I'm going to put my needle right in that center line. The pin comes out, and I sew down this way. I flip it over. This is already sewn. I put my needle back in the same position, and I sew down this side. That's getting my point so that it's absolutely where I want it to be. I won't have to take this out now. This is what it looks like when you get all 8 pieces sewn together. Every one of them is just so pretty. Look at the difference in these 2 blocks. Now we have to do is we have to trim this to make a square. I like to use my rotary mat because it spins around and it's very easy to use. I put my lines. You'll see I have like a cross, a line there and a line here. I'm not concentrating on these. I have a line, I drew a line on my mat. It's my mat, so I figure I can draw with a Sharpie if I want to. I put my cross on my fabric on the cross on the mat so that I know my fabric is centered. Once I do that, I'm going to cut this down to about 7 inches. I count from the outer edge. I don't want to have to count from the center line every time. I just know it's 2 1/4. This is 2 1/2 inches from this edge, so I can do that very fast. I go 2 1/2. I trim it. Spin my mat, 2 1/2. I trim it. All 56 of these will be done the same way. 2 1/2. Spin my mat. One more time and our block is finished. Now we have a square diamond. See how pretty that is with the way we have cut it and trimmed it? You can sash these if you want, like we did on the square diamonds. I thought that that fabric needed to be sashed so that each square really pops out. I can see each individual square. When I put the squares together on my design board and I didn't sash them, they kind of got lost. I didn't see as much of the beauty in each one. So I chose to sash this one. We do sell this in a kit. The kit comes with the sashing for the black and white. We also have a square diamond kit in this fabric. This is called ambrosia because it's got fruits, and it looks like I just went to the farmer's market and picked all these up. This is not sashed. This fabric just wanted to not be sashed because the beauty of the colors and the interest when we put them together did not want sashing. So people ask me to sash or not to sash. My quilts usually tell me I can make the same pattern. One needed to be sashed, one didn't need to be sashed. I have had girls at retreats make this black and white one and not sash it, and it's beautiful. The way they laid out the colors was beautiful. So the sashing is the next part. If you're not sure about sashing, we're going to be doing a tutorial on sashing. You want to look for that in the future. If not, we're done with this. See you back at the branch.